They are burning a saint today. The whole capital has come to watch. Her name is Leora. Yesterday they called her the greatest saint the Empire had ever known. Today they call her a heretic and light the fire. The high churchman who raised her up stand on the steps, faces solemn, hands clean. The crown watches from its gilded box. Only one soul in the crowd weeps for her. Leora searches the sky for her goddess, as she has prayed and searched for a long and lonely while now. Nothing answers. That silence, more than the fire, is what breaks her. What she cannot see, behind the sealed sanctuary doors, is her goddess pressed against the barrier of severed light, straining to reach her, unable. The goddess did not abandon her saint. She was locked out. But Leora will burn believing the opposite. As the fire takes her, a whole life rises behind her eyes. The long, bright, impossible story of how a foundling child became a living saint and how that saint came to burn. It begins where she began, with nothing. 20 years before the Paya, Leora was a temple foundling. No name worth recording, no family, no future. Just a small girl who swept the chapel steps and talked to a goddess who, in those days, felt very close. The other children mocked the strange, quiet orphan who whispered prayers to empty air. Leora did not mind. To her, the air was never empty. The day everything changed, she was 8 years old, and a boy fell from the bell tower. No healer could reach him in time. So a small orphan girl knelt by the broken boy, pressed her hands to him, and begged the goddess with her whole heart. And the goddess answered. Through the hands of a nameless child, a light no one had seen in a generation poured out. The boy stood up healed. The girl who healed him looked at her own glowing hands as if they belonged to someone else, and every adult present fell to their knees. Word of a foundling with the goddess's true light reached the capital within the week. The great church does not ignore a miracle, it collects them. They tested her for a month. Every trial a saintess in training might face in years, they gave the 8-year-old in days. She passed all of them. The examiners had meant to find a lucky fluke. Instead, they found the strongest channel for the goddess's light the church had recorded in over 700 years. And so a nameless orphan was given a name to be remembered and a title to grow into. Saintess in training. Against every expectation, the lowest child in the empire had been chosen. She wept that night. Not from fear, from gratitude. The goddess who had been her only friend had reached down and lifted her out of nothing. She swore she would never stop repaying it. That vow would carry her to glory. It would also, in the end, be the blade they turned on her. But that was 20 years away. The years that followed were the happiest of her life. And she spent every one of them working. By 15, Leora had outgrown her teachers. Where other trainees recited rites, she felt them. Where they drew a thread of the goddess's light, she drew a flood. The training hall would fall silent when she healed. Master healers, men who had served 40 years, came simply to watch the girl work. They began, quietly, to say a dangerous thing about her, that she might become the greatest saint the empire had ever known. Leora hated when they said it. The light is not mine, she would insist. I am only the window it shines through. Praise the goddess, never the glass. She believed it with her whole heart. That humility was real. It was also why everyone loved her. She trained until her hands ached and her knees were calloused from prayer, not for glory. Because every soul she could not yet save was a soul she felt she owed, and in those years, the goddess felt nearer to her than to anyone alive. In prayer, Leora swore she could feel a warmth answer back, like a hand laid gently over hers. Remember that warmth. Hold on to it, because the cruelest part of her story is not the fire. It is the day that warmth goes quiet, and she does not understand why. At 21, the empire made it official. In a cathedral packed to the doors, Leora knelt a trainee and rose the living saint of the Aurelian Empire, the youngest saint in the empire's history, the strongest its records had ever named. The child who had nothing now belonged to everyone, and she did the only thing she had ever wanted to do with her gift. She went straight to the cathedral steps, to the poorest and most desperate the city could send, and she began to heal. The sick, the dying, the ruined came at every dawn, and she turned none of them away. To the empire, she was a symbol. To them, she was the hand that reached back. Among the orphans she sheltered was a small, fierce girl named Edda, who reminded the saint so much of herself that she kept her close. Edda would come to believe in Leora, the way Leora believed in the goddess. For a few short years, it was everything the orphan girl who swept the chapel steps had ever dreamed. The empire was healed by her hands and warmed by her name, and the goddess felt close, and Leora was simply happy. She had risen from nothing to the height of the world, carried by a goddess she adored, surrounded by people she had saved. She had no idea she was standing at the top of a fall, because high above her, on a balcony she never thought to look up at, a man in white and gold was already watching the saint the way a man watches a treasure he intends to spend. That is a story for the dawns to come. The slow theft, the quiet betrayal, the silence where her goddess used to be. The day the greatest saint in the world learns what her own church has been doing with her light. But that is not today's story. Today, the memory ends where it must. Back in the fire. The flames have her fully now. The crowd has fallen silent. The girl who once healed a broken boy with borrowed light burns beneath the banners of the goddess she gave her whole life to. And she burns, believing the cruelest possible thing. That the goddess she adored from the chapel steps to the saint's altar simply, at the end, turned away from her. She is wrong. Her goddess is screaming for her behind a door she cannot open. But by the time Leora learns that, she will already be something the church will wish it had never made. They are burning a saint today. Remember her as she was on the chapel steps, talking to a goddess who answered, because the thing that rises from this fire will not be a saint at all. They are still burning the saint. Look at the crowd this time. Yesterday, these same mouths sang her name in the streets. Today, they scream traitor and throw whatever they can lift. Leora does not hear them anymore. The flames have climbed past her knees, and she is still searching the smoke above the square for a goddess who does not come. Hold what you learned last time. Behind the sealed sanctuary doors, her goddess is hammering against a wall of severed light, screaming for her saint. Leora cannot hear it. She will die not hearing it, and as the fire takes more of her, the memory rises again. It flees backward, away from the pain, into the brightest years she ever lived. The years that earned her this. Her training was finished. The youngest consecrated saint in the empire's history knelt before the council and was asked where she wished to serve. Every gilded post in the capital was hers for a word. She asked for the posting nobody wanted, a border city at the edge of the tainted wilds, where the empire's maps go gray. If the goddess's light was for anyone, she said, it was for the people standing nearest the dark. The city was called Valemere. Wind-scoured walls, salt gray stone, and beyond the walls the tainted wilds, where the land grows wrong and things with too many joints move at night. Valemere had buried 2 ward keepers in 10 years. When the carriage gates opened and a girl in white stepped out, the city did not cheer. It folded its arms and waited for her to fail. She answered the only way she knew. She opened the chapel doors at dawn the next morning and healed everyone who came and took nothing for it. Then she did it again. Every dawn after, and she went to the walls. Valemere's ward stones were ancient and starved, guttering like candles at the end of their wax. She laid her hands on the first one and gave until it remembered what it was. That is what the wards are for. Out past the walls, the wilds watch the city the way wolves watch a fire, waiting for it to die down. The light on the stones is the only thing that says no. Months passed, and the folded arms came undone. The city that had waited for her to fail started leaving bread at the chapel door instead. The children took to following her like gulls follow a ship. They called her the little saint of Valemere. And every night she prayed, and every night the goddess answered. A warmth in her palms, like hands holding hers. Mark that warmth. There is a night coming when she will reach for it and find a wall, and be told it was never there. Then came the storm. It rolled out of the wilds black as a closing fist, and in the worst hour of it, the oldest ward stone on the west wall cracked through its heart and went dark. The dark did not waste the invitation. Something vast came through the gap in the light, and the wall guard broke before it like a fence before a flood. They found their saint already running toward it, barefoot in the rain, in her nightclothes, past every man running the other way. She put herself in the gap between the city and the dark, and she stopped. She had no ward stone left to pour the light into, so she poured it into herself. A dome of dawn rose out of one small woman in the rain, and the dark broke against it like a wave on a cliff. She held it until dawn. Hours. Alone. The goddess and the girl held that line together, and neither one let go of the other. Remember that too. When it was over, she did not sleep. She walked the rows of the wounded and healed until her light flickered, and then she kept walking on stubbornness alone, and when she finally fell, it was Edda who caught her. She woke 2 days later to find the city of folded arms keeping vigil under her window. Candles on every sill in Valemere. The city was hers after that. Not one. Given. The years that followed were the happiest of her life. Festivals and harvests, weddings she blessed and children she named. A gray city at the edge of the map, warm at its heart because she was in it. But light that bright does not stay unnoticed. First came pilgrims. Then came men from the capital with soft hands and ledger eyes, who watched her renew the wards the way assessors watch a mime. And in the capital, the man in white and gold from the balcony read their reports. A border saint who raises a city ward alone from her own body. He smiled the way a man smiles when he finds money. The summons came with a gold seal, the grand cathedral itself, the heart of the faith, the highest honor a servant of the goddess can be offered. Leora wept when she read it, and believed her tears were joy. She spent her last week in Valemere renewing every stone on the walls one final time, pouring in enough light to outlast her. The city pretended to be proud of her. It grieved like a family. On the morning she left, the whole city lined the road. The children ran after her carriage to the edge of the ward light and stopped there, because she had taught them never to go past it. She looked back at Valemere until it was gone. She thought she was being called toward her goddess. Every mile of that road was carrying her away from the last place her prayers were truly safe. Remember the faithful servant of Valemere. The men who summoned her had already weighed her, priced her, and planned her use. The church was not calling its brightest daughter home. It was bringing the harvest in. The memory thins. The road and the spires and the children at the ward light all burn away, and what is left is what was always left. The fire. The hands throwing stones tonight are the same kind of hands that lined that road. That is what the church took from her first. Not her light, her people. One soul in the square is screaming for her, not at her. Edda, fighting the guard line with both fists to reach the fire, held back, breaking. The only mourner the greatest saint in the world gets. And behind the sealed doors, a goddess presses her brow against a wall of severed light, feeling her truest servant burn on the other side of it, able to do exactly nothing. Next time the memory rises, it goes where the road was always going. The capital, the grand cathedral, the golden years, and the quiet rot that was waiting inside them. They are burning a saint today. She gave them her whole life first. Remember Valemere. It is the last place in this story where the church still deserved her. Why have you forsaken me? That is what the saint is screaming at the sky over the square, while the empire she served watches her burn and calls it entertainment. The crowd is worse tonight. They have started to enjoy it. Vendors work the edges. Children sit on shoulders for a better view. A holy execution, kept like a festival. And here is the answer to her question, the one she will never hear. Behind the severed light, her goddess is screaming back. 2 screams, 1 wall between them. The wall has a builder, and you have seen his face. The fire climbs, and the memory climbs with it, up out of the border city and onto the road, to the chapter that gilded the trap. The capital years, the grand cathedral of the capital, stone like frozen music, windows like a dawn that never ends. The little saint of Weilmere stood in the nave with her one bag and her one friend, and felt the goddess everywhere. She knelt at the high altar and wept. She had never felt her goddess so close, and that much at least was true. Here, at the heart of the faith, Aurelius could still reach her. For now, her new duty was the Empire's oldest. Beneath the cathedral sleeps the Great Ward, a ring of ancient light that has guarded the capital for 600 years. Saints feed it. The strongest saints feed it most. She kept her old habit too. Dawn on the cathedral steps. Doors open. The poor of the capital healed for nothing. The high clergy called it unbecoming of cathedral rank. She smiled, agreed it probably was, and did it anyway. And when the knights rode out to cleanse the tainted lands, the new saint rode with them. The knight captain took one look at the gentle girl in white and assigned 2 men to carry her home when she fainted. Then they reached the blackened valley, ground that breathed wrong. Trees turned to twisted glass, the kind of taint that eats a column of knights and sends back the horses. She dismounted, gave her boots to a squire because she said the land should feel her honestly, and walked barefoot into the rot, knelt in the middle of it, and poured. The valley exhaled. The glass trees softened toward wood. Green ghosted back through the ash. And a column of hard men who trusted nothing. They could not sharpen, went to their knees in the dirt, unordered. The rot did not go quietly. Something came up out of the last black acre with too many mouths and took the knight captain off his horse before the line could form. The knights killed it. The saint did the harder thing. She held the captain's torn body together with her bare hands and her borrowed light until his heart agreed to keep going. He woke swearing. She apologized for the scar. After that, the knights were hers, not the church's. Hers. Soldiers only believe sermons written in someone else's blood, and she had signed one in front of them. Remember the knights. Some of them will matter. And on the high holy days came the great rites, when the saint stood at the anchor of the Great Ward and gave it a year of her light in a single hour. The whole capital came to watch their saint burn bright, now watch what she could not. Beneath the rite, fitted to the anchor like leeches to a vein, gold instruments drank the overflow. Her light decanted into sealed vessels, carried down into the dark. Practiced. Efficient. Routine. And above it all, on a gallery where the light could not reach his face, the gaunt man in white and gold watched his investment perform. The reports from Weilmere had not exaggerated. The smile was very thin and very satisfied. The vaults below the cathedral hold rows of those vessels, years of them, harvests that began long before a foundling from the chapel steps ever wore white. She is not the first vessel the false faithful have milked. She is only the richest. The cost arrived quietly, the way theft does. After each great rite, a tiredness that sleep would not cure. Her light a half-beat slower to answer small things. Easy to explain. She explained them. Her prayers grew thinner too. The warmth that used to hold her hands in Weilmere now reached her faint and far away, like a voice through a wall. She decided the fault was hers. Too busy, too proud. Pray harder. The wrongness kept small and kept adding up. The inner sanctuary, which Scripture says must never be shut, sealed for restoration, a restoration with no workmen, no dust, and no end. Smiling clergy turned her from the door each time she asked. Whispers in corridors that stopped when she came near. Strong rooms where a church of the poor kept its ledgers, and on a cardinal's finger a ring set with a stone like a trapped drop of dawn. Light, in a place light should never be kept. One night, she prayed at the sealed sanctuary door itself, palm flat against the wood. On the other side of 3 inches of oak and one severed world, her goddess pressed a hand of light to the same spot. Neither of them ever knew. Etta felt it before her saint would let herself feel it. The candles in the vault corridor burned the wrong color. A deacon's grip on her arm was too hard for holiness. The safest building in the empire had started to frighten her, so Leora asked her gentle questions. Of an old archivist, of a kind-faced cardinal She received warm, polished answers with nothing inside them, the way the church gives alms. She told Edda the faith was sound, and only men were flawed. She was half right. And the half she was wrong about had already noticed her noticing. In a study above the nave, the gaunt man read a report of the saint's questions, ordered nothing, and moved her name from one ledger to another. In the church, the false faithful have built. That is how a death sentence begins. Not with a shout. With bookkeeping, her goddess tried to warn her, a guttering of every candle when the false faithful passed. Dreams she woke from with wet cheeks and no memory, warning strangled thin by severed channels, arriving as nothing but weather. The memory thins again. The cloisters and the questions and the thin, warm answers all burn away. The fire is waiting where it has been waiting all along. Her scream has burned down to smoke. The crowd cheers an execution like a coronation, and on the cathedral steps stand the men with clean hands, watching their bookkeeping come to its balance. She believed the faith was sound, and only men were flawed. Hold on to how much she wanted that to be true, because next time the memory reaches the rot itself, and what the kindest soul in the empire found behind the smiling answers. They are burning a saint today. She asked her church honest questions, and her church answered with a fire. Next time, you see exactly when the questions became a sentence. They are burning a saint today, and the holiest man alive is blessing the fire. Tonight, you learn how he earned his place in her ledger. This is the night her honest questions became a sentence. Look at the steps. The hierarch who bled her, the prince who sentenced her, the pope who wept for her. Remember each face. By the end of this memory, you will know exactly what every one of them did. And behind the sealed sanctuary, her goddess claws at a wall of severed light. Keep that in frame. Everything you are about to watch happened on the other side of a locked door. Heaven could not open. The fire climbs, and the memory runs out of bright years to hide it. It arrives at the night the kindest soul in the empire finally looked under the altar. The great spring rite emptied her like never before. It was Sister Edda, her attendant since Valemere, the one friend she had, who carried her to bed and sat the night, frightened by how little of her saint came back. Because the arithmetic was wrong, and Leora finally did it, she had poured a flood into the great ward. The ward had brightened by a trickle. Somewhere between her hands and the anchor, most of her light was simply gone. So 3 nights later, while the cathedral slept, the gentlest woman in the empire took one candle and followed the anchor's roots down, past the right floor, past the locked stair Edda had been steered away from. Down, and there it was. Gold instruments fitted to the anchor like leeches to a vein, channels running not up toward the ward but down, into the dark, built, maintained, polished. Her church had engineered the theft of her god's light. She followed the channels to the vault, and her candles showed her rows, shelves of sealed vessels glowing like dying embers receding into dark, years of harvests, lifetimes of stolen light. Hers were only the newest and the brightest. Understand what broke in her there. The thin prayers, the silence where the warmth had been. She had blamed herself for 2 years. It was never her failing. They had been drinking her goddess out of her hands. Then lamplight on the stair, and she snuffed her candle and pressed into the dark between the shelves, while Hierarch Crovan walked the rows like a vintner among casks, touching her stolen light with the proprietor's hand. She escaped unseen, she thought. But a vault that careful counts its candles, and by morning Crovan knew the wax on the floor was not his. He did not raise an alarm. He opened the darker ledger instead. She ran to the sealed sanctuary and beat on the door, begging her goddess to hear what she had found. Inches away, Aurelius beat back, screaming her name through severed light. Neither heard the other. The wall held, she told only Edda, in a whisper, in a locked room. And she made the mistake only a truly good person could make. She decided the rot must stop somewhere below the throne. She would go to the Pope himself. First, a precaution. Letters to Ser Aldrich, the knight captain whose life she had held together in the Blackened Valley. Not a summons. Instructions, sealed by Edda's hand, to be opened only if their saint disappeared. Then she washed, dressed in white and requested an audience with Pope Severin, the holiest man alive. The last clean room in the church, she believed. She walked in carrying the truth like a wound she trusted him to heal. She knelt and told him everything, the instruments, the vaults, and the old man wept, took her hands, and blessed her courage. Watch the tears. You stood in the square tonight. You've already seen what those hands bless. The moment the doors closed behind her, the tears stopped like a tap. Croven stepped from behind the papal screen. The Pope asked one question only: how much does she know? The rot did not reach the throne. It started there. The frame took 11 days. Forbidden texts aged in smoke and slipped beneath her floorboards. Her sealed prayer journal rewritten in a forger's perfect hand. Every dawn she had spent healing the poor refiled, quietly, as gathering a following. Her precaution died first. The letters were taken at the courier gate, read and burned, and Sir Aldrich's knights received sudden orders to the far border, riding out before dawn, proud of the honor. Her one army removed politely. They arrested her on the cathedral steps at dawn, mid-healing, with her hands still glowing over a sick child. They chose that hour deliberately. The poor watched their saint chained and were told the light they loved was stolen from hell. In the cell, she prayed until her knees bled, reaching for the warmth that once held her hands. Nothing came. On the far side of the severed light, her goddess poured everything she had at the wall. Nothing arrived. The trial was theater with a verdict, pre-written. A man stood witness, swore he had seen her commune with the dark. She had healed his daughter for nothing 2 winters past. He recited his vision to the floor. He never once met her eyes. Then Croven presented the masterstroke. Examiners measured her holy light, found it withered, and called it proof. The goddess has withdrawn from this heretic. They drained her for years, then entered the draining itself as evidence. Even she, for one breath, believed it. One voice tried. Edda fought to the witness rail, screaming that the books were planted, that she had served the saints since Valemere. They carried her out by the arms, recorded nothing, and the gallery of poor she had healed sat silent, afraid. The sentence needed an imperial seal. Prince Castle had bankrolled his faction with the church's stolen gold, and a living saint with proof could end him. He signed the death of the woman who kept his empire's walls alight. He never once looked up. Heresy, corruption of the divine channel, death by purifying fire. And Pope Severin confirmed it with raised, trembling hands, in the same voice that had blessed her courage, while somewhere below them both, her bottled light glowed in the dark. They walked her to the square, through a city she had healed. The church's criers had worked for days, and grief is easy to turn. By the time she reached the pyre, the people she loved were calling for the fire. At the stake, she still prayed. Through the reading of the verdict, through the torch, she waited for her goddess the way she had waited barefoot in the rain at Valemere. And the sky stayed silent, and something in her began to turn. Here, the memory stops running, because it has caught up. There is no brighter year left to hide in. The flashback and the fire are the same place now. This is the night. This is the pyre. She is out of past. On the dais, Prince Castle watches with his practiced public sorrow and thinks he has finished paying. His currency was never gold. It is the face he shows the empire. He has no idea the bill survives the fire. Beside him, Croven watches his richest harvest close and feels nothing but tidiness. The vaults are full, the channels sealed, the witness ash. He believes nothing of her survives tonight. It is the only entry he will ever get wrong, and the Pope blesses the smoke with steady hands. But look closer. The watery eyes flick to the flames and away, to the flames and away. Old men who rob gods know better than anyone that such accounts fall due. His will. At the guard line, Edda is still fighting to reach her, the last loyal soul in the square, screaming a name the crowd has already turned into a curse. Remember her. She is everything the fire cannot take, and in the heart of the fire the greatest saint who ever lived stops praying. 20 years of devotion burned down to one black coal of a thought. You left me. The flames close over her. Her heart slows toward its last beat. She is wrong about her goddess, and she will die wrong, but she will not stay dead. Next time, in the final seconds, when heaven stays silent, something older and darker finally answers. They burned a saint today. Watch what rises. In the heart of the fire, the greatest saint who ever lived stops praying and does not start begging. 20 years of devotion burned down to one defiant act. With the last breath left in her body, the gentlest soul in the empire does not pray. She names Krovan, the hierarch who weighed her like ore, bled her dry, and built her heresy out of paper. She curses him first by name, and the crowd nearest the cathedral steps falls quiet. Castel, the prince who signed her death without looking up to bury the proof of stolen gold. She curses the hand, the seal, and the face he shows the empire. Severin, the holiest man alive, who wept for her courage with dry eyes. She curses the throne itself, and on the steps the old man's blessing hands tighten. And last, the deepest wound, the goddess she served barefoot in the rain. You left me, she screams at the empty sky. I gave you everything, and you watched. The sky, as always, says nothing. She is wrong, and you know it. Behind the severed light, Aurelius hears her name turned into a curse and shatters herself against the wall one final time. Nothing crosses. A goddess learns what it is to be helpless. At the barrier, Edda has stopped screaming. There is nothing left to scream with. She just holds the rail and watches the only person who ever loved her burn, and the crowd cheers around her like weather. Then, with the last air in her lungs, the gentlest soul in the empire makes a vow. If there is a next life, she will spend every hour of it collecting what they owe. Mark the vow. Something is listening, and then it is done. The smoke takes her breath, the fire takes the rest, and the heart that healed an empire beats once more and stops. Leora, the greatest saint who ever lived, is dead. The square feels it before it sees it. The screaming stops, and the silence after is so heavy that even the festival crowd forgets, for one breath, to celebrate. Where a saint's soul goes, there should be light, hands of warmth, a welcome. She falls instead through a dark, with no floor, no goddess, no door. Heaven, as far as she can tell, did not even open, but something in that dark turns toward her. Older than the church, older than the wards. It has heard 10,000 dying curses and ignored them. Hers, it answers, because hers came from a vessel built to carry a god. The faith has a name for it, spoken only to burn the books that contain it. The tithe, a power that runs not on light, but on sin. Where her goddess flows through the pure, this flows through the guilty. It does not promise heaven. It promises grip. Every cruelty a soul commits becomes a handle she can seize. The greedier the man, the deeper her reach. The innocent she will never touch. Her killers were never innocent. It shows her the city as it truly is. Sin glowing in the dark like rot glows in wood. The cathedral burns brightest of all, a bonfire of guilt with 3 names at its heart. Her names. A year ago she would have refused. The saint who walked barefoot into rot would have chosen heaven's silence over this. But they burned that woman an hour ago. The thing she has become reaches out and takes it. Hear the price before you cheer. The tide feeds on sin, and it will pull her towards sin to stay fed. Every use burns away a little more of the gentle saint. She is fighting rot with rot. Remember that. In the dark of death, something forbidden pours into the empty vessel. Black sigils write themselves across her skin. Violet eyes flush ember. And a heart, the church declared, stopped forever, beats. Above her, the fire has finished its work. The crowd drifts home satisfied. Guards rake the embers of what the church promises is a heretic, fully purified. The square empties. Nobody watches Ash. Krovan leaves last, as architects do. The vaults are full, the channels sealed, the witness burned. He enters her death and his ledger is closed. The one entry that man will ever get wrong. Castel departs, rehearsing tomorrow's morning face. Severin blesses the smoke a final time with steady hands and unsteady eyes. Old men who rob gods can feel an account left open. He just cannot see where. Hours pass. Rain comes thin and cold and puts out the last embers. The square that held 50,000 voices holds one bored guard and a hill of gray ash. And then the ash exhales. She rises out of her own pyre remade. Unburned. Pale silver hair against a black sky. Eyes ember violet, ash-gray corruption curling at her fingertips. The cold open was no trick. The Saint of Ash is standing. The guard turns, and she sees him the way the tithe sees everyone now. Not a man, a ledger. The bribes, the prisoners he beat for sport, the doors he walked past because the screaming behind them belonged to someone else. Handles, everyone. She speaks one soft word, and the guilty man drops to his knees in the ash and forgets her face entirely. But forgetting her is the only mercy he gets, as her tithe drains up her arm. Strength and sin, both true. Every soul he ever wronged rises in him and refuses to sink again. The child he let starve, the mother he turned from the gate, the faces he taught himself to sleep through, surfacing now, waking and dreaming, and never going quiet again. She could take more, drain him to a husk in the ash and walk on. This time she doesn't. She leaves him his life and the weight of it, and walks into a city full of deeper rot, still learning the shape of what she has become. Then she looks at her own hands, the hands that healed an empire for free, and feels what is missing. The warmth never coming back. She does not weep. The fire took that too. She stands in the rain, learning what she is now. Behind the sealed door, Aurelis feels the forbidden power bloom where her saint died, and understands two things at once. Leora lives, and she lives by the one door heaven barred. The goddess weeps with relief and with horror. In the ash she speaks three names like entries in a ledger. Croven, who bled her. Castel, who signed. Severin, who blessed. Not rage. Bookkeeping. They taught her how a death sentence begins, and she will not come for them as a ghost or a monster. Underestimation is a blade. She will come back gentle, serene, a survivor with a soft smile, and they will open every door themselves. One soul in this city is still pure enough that her new power could never touch her. Edda, weeping somewhere in the dark, believing her saint is gone. Leora will protect that belief. The dead make better hunters. She pulls a dead man's cloak from the barrier wreckage and walks out of the square that killed her, barefoot through her own ash, past banners of the goddess she no longer prays to. The Empire thinks the story ended tonight. They burned a saint today, and by dawn there is nothing on the pyre but rain. Next time, the Empire celebrates her death, and a gentle, impossible survivor walks back through the cathedral doors wearing a soft smile. Her ledger opens. The morning after she climbed out of her own pyre, the capital woke, ringing every bell in celebration of her death. The heretic was purified, the Empire was safe, and none of them felt the Saint of Ash already walking their streets. On every corner, criers sell her death as a victory. The heretic is purified, the Empire is safe. She stands at the edge of the crowd and learns how cheaply 20 years of healing were rewritten overnight. And the tithe shows her the celebration as it truly is. Sin glowing under skin like rot under bark. Some souls barely flicker. Some are furnaces. She does not yet know what the difference means. Today, she finds out. She shelters in a derelict chapel the church defunded years ago. A power with no doctrine kills its wielder, and she was the finest scholar of holy law alive. So she does what saints do with a new scripture. She tests it. First test, a market merchant who waters his widow's flower, a shallow ember of greed. She whispers from her hood. His hand opens against his will. A single coin falls to a beggar. Then her grip slides off. Shallow rot, shallow reach. Second test. A beggar child with nothing to confess. She reaches, and there is nothing to hold. No handle, no purchase. The power slides off the girl like rain off glass. The pure are not hard to touch. They are impossible. Understand what that means to her. The thing she has become can only ever be a monster to the guilty. The innocent are locked away from her hands forever, safe and unreachable. She feels relief. Then she feels the grief underneath it, behind the severed light. Aurelis feels every test like a needle. Her vessel, the purest hand she ever filled, learning the forbidden grammar word by word. The goddess cannot stop it. She cannot even say she is sorry. Nudges and locked doors. To learn the law between them, she needs a deep sinner. She can study safely. She already owns one. The Ashwatch guard whose night she stole, walking the city right now with an hour missing from his life. Binding him is effortless. She does not track footprints. She tracks rot. His guilt burns through 2 streets of stone like a lamp behind paper, and the dead woman follows her executioner's guard home through the afternoon crowds. His sins read like a ledger she did not have to open. Bribes by the dozen. Prisoners beaten for sport. Coin taken to look away on the night a man died in his cell. Handle after handle after handle. He cuts through a back alley at dusk, as guilty men habitually do. And now you are caught up with the cold open. The dead saint steps out of the shadows behind him and says his name softly, like an old friend. He recognizes her face from the stake and opens his mouth to scream. She says one word, "Stop." The scream dies in his throat. No struggle, no resistance, like a door swinging on an oiled hinge. His rot is that deep. "Kneel," she says, and he kneels. "Confess," she says, and 20 years of buried filth pour out of him into the rain. She is not torturing him. She is deeper than his tongue now. She is standing in his memory. Here is the tide's first law, written in a kneeling man's confession. Her grip is exactly as deep as the sinner's rot. The shallow she can nudge, the rotten she can wear like a glove, the pure she cannot touch at all. So she uses the depth she has. Watch rotations. Which doors the cathedral guards leave soft, which sergeants take coin and from whom. She empties his rotten memory the way he once emptied the poor box, methodically. And in his memory she finds a problem with her own name on it. The church examiners have flagged his report, an Ashwatch guard with a missing hour, the night the heretic burned. He is summoned for questioning tomorrow. Understand the stakes. If a vault-counting church pulls that blank hour apart, the trail ends at an empty pyre. Her resurrection survives exactly as long as no one looks. The loose end she left in the ash has grown teeth. She could erase the problem a simple way. Drain him to a husk and let the gutter keep him. Instead she takes only a tithe, and the stolen life floods up her arm like dark wine, stronger than yesterday, easier than yesterday. Then the cost collects. As the strength settles, she reaches for the evening hymn she has sung since she was 8, and finds half of it gone, burned away like the warmth. Every feeding takes a piece of the saint. Remember that, so she does not kill him. She rewrites him. A seamless, false memory fills the blank hour, dull enough to bore any examiner. And deep in his rot she seats a hook of her own. The church's guard. Her first pawn. She releases him. He picks up his lantern, steadies his memory of an unremarkable night, and walks home whole, owned, and unknowing. Tomorrow he will bore his examiners perfectly, and he will keep walking the cathedral's halls. For her. In the cathedral, Croven closes the burning's paperwork with a craftsman's satisfaction and orders something grander, a mass of purification to consecrate the heretic's cleansing before the whole empire. He believes he is scheduling a celebration. By nightfall, the criers have it. In 7 days, the Pope will bless the square where she burned, the prince beside him, the hierarch at his right hand. 3 names from a dead woman's ledger, gathered on one dais. She hears it from the shadows and almost smiles. A ghost cannot walk through cathedral doors. A survivor can. The church will need its miracle story checked and managed, and she intends to be that story, gentle and impossible. One stop first. She finds Edda where the grieving go, on the side chapel steps, and turns the tithe's sight on her oldest friend. Nothing. No ember, no handle, no rot. The only soul in the capital her power cannot see. One step would end that grief. One word. She does not take the step. Everyone who stands near what she is becoming will burn for it eventually, and Edda is the last thing she owns worth protecting. The dead stay dead. for now. Behind the wall, Aurelis gathers everything she has left and pushes one mote of comfort toward the weeping girl, the purest open vessel in the city. It dies in the severed light, inches from the seam. Even kindness cannot cross. In the derelict chapel, she practices the only weapon the fire could not give her. The sigils sink, the embers cool to gentle violet. In a shard of mirror, the serene saint the empire loved smiles back, perfect and entirely a mask. She trades the dead man's cloak for pilgrim gray and rehearses her resurrection like scripture, where she drifted, how she lived, why the fire spared her. Every answer humble, tearful, and checkable nowhere. Then she looks toward the cathedral. In 7 days, the 3 men who killed her gather on one dais to celebrate her ashes. They do not know the account survived. Next time, a gentle, impossible survivor walks back through the cathedral doors, and the ledger opens its first page.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe!